Memorial Day weekend, right after the lockdowns finally let up. It was like the world collectively exhaled. Everyone was trying to feel normal again, like the last couple of years hadn't left this weird static in the air. We were all itching to be out, around people, sun on our faces, music blaring from Bluetooth speakers. The plan was simple. Get out on the water, drink too much, and forget about reality for a while. My friend Eli was the golden ticket. His family's place was on Oakfield shores, and more importantly, his dad owned this gorgeous yacht he let Eli take out when he wasn't using it. It was one of those boats that made people stop and stare. And yeah, Eli loved that. We all met up at his dock. Me, Darren, Luis, our usual crew. It was early afternoon, perfect weather, and everyone showed up already in high spirits, like the day had already promised something wild. We were headed out to Griffin Bay, where apparently half the town was already anchored. It was one of those unofficial but everyone knows events, where boats tie up together and people just climb around from one to the next, like some floating block party. We packed way too many drinks, not enough water, and assumed the day would just kind of float by. Looking back, I guess there was a weird sort of calm in those first hours. Not peaceful, more like the kind of stillness you don't even notice until it's long gone. I didn't think twice about anything. Why would I? It was Memorial Day. It was supposed to be fun, but that's the thing, right? The worst nights never start off like they're going to be the ones you remember for all the wrong reasons. It crept up on us. One minute Eli was standing on the deck with a drink in his hand, talking too loud and laughing at his own jokes like he always did. And the next, he was just not there anymore. I mean, he was physically there, slumped in one of the cushioned seats on the upper deck, eyes half open, swaying with the rhythm of the boat, but mentally gone, like someone hit pause on him. The sun was just starting to dip behind the tree line, that orange haze settling in, and the bay around us had thinned out. A few boats were still tied together, but most of the party had started breaking up. That's when I noticed the silence on our boat. No music, no shouting, just the soft slap of water against fiberglass. And Eli, totally out of it. It should have clicked faster. He was the only one who knew how to pilot that thing. We'd all ridden along 100 times, but none of us ever paid attention to the mechanics. I guess we figured we didn't need to. Eli was always the one who got us back. But that night, he couldn't even lift his head. I told him to crash in the cabin, hoping he'd sleep it off quick. He mumbled something and stumbled below deck, and then it was just us, floating. No direction, no backup plan. We didn't even talk about what came next. I think part of us didn't want to say it out loud that we were kind of stuck out there, that we'd let things get too loose. At the time I didn't feel worried, just figured we'd wait it out. He'd wake up, we'd go home. Easy. That's what I told myself anyway. Turns out I was way off. There's something about being stuck that makes people show their teeth. At first it was fine. Just the three of us up on the deck, letting the water rock us a bit, waiting for Eli to sober up. But time moved weird out there. The light changed, the air felt heavier, and the silence, it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that turns on you when there's nothing left to distract from it. Luis kept pacing. He was visibly on edge, walking laps around the deck like he was expecting someone to show up and fix the situation. At one point, he looked out toward the shoreline and muttered something about swimming. I thought he was joking. I honestly couldn't tell. Then came the suggestion. Luis said we should just drive the boat back ourselves. Just figure it out, like it was that simple. Darren pushed back immediately, said it was a terrible idea, that we'd end up hitting something or getting stopped by Marine Patrol. I agreed, but the way I said it, yeah, it came out sharper than I meant. Luis snapped back. Darren jumped in, and just like that it spiraled. Stupid stuff at first. Whose idea was it to bring that much drink? Why didn't anyone stop Eli earlier? Then it got personal. Things from weeks ago, months even, getting thrown around like darts. All that alcohol, the isolation, the heat, it just boiled over. I remember yelling. I remember Darren looking like he might throw a punch. Then I remember us all just quiet. Not because anything got resolved, just because we ran out of energy, out of things to blame. We sat in silence after that. No music, no plan. Just the sound of the bay and this weird sense that we weren't alone, even though we couldn't see a soul. It must have been close to twilight by the time Eli crawled his way back up onto the deck. He looked like hell. Eyes red, sunburn setting in, hair all over the place. But he could stand. That was enough for us. No one wanted to spend another minute floating aimlessly. We got moving, heading toward the canal that would lead us back to Oakfield shores. At first, it felt like relief, the kind you only realize you've been craving once it finally hits. The shoreline slowly inched closer, the boat hummed along, and it felt like we'd made it out of whatever weird headspace we'd slipped into back in the bay. Then I noticed it. There was this other boat, behind us. Not close, not tailgating, but definitely there. At first I didn't think anything of it. It's a canal, boats come and go, but it didn't pass us. It didn't slow down either, it just held its distance. No radio chatter, no flashing lights, no signs of anyone on board trying to get our attention. It was Darren who asked, "Has that boat been behind us the whole time?" That's when it clicked. Yeah, it had. I kept glancing back, trying to catch a clear look. But the sun was nearly down, and the shadows were long. I couldn't make out faces, just a dark outline, steady and quiet, staying with us like it had somewhere to be, and that somewhere was wherever we were going. Eli didn't say much, but he kept checking the rear-view mirror like he was expecting something worse. His hands were gripping the wheel tighter than I'd ever seen before. That boat, it wasn't just following, it was watching, or at least that's how it felt, and that feeling hasn't left me since. We finally reached the dock behind Eli's place, and for a second it felt like the tension might ease up. The house lights were off. The shoreline was quiet, and we just focused on tying up the boat. Routine stuff. But that quiet didn't last. As we looped the lines, I saw movement from the corner of my eye. That same boat. It wasn't far off like before. It came close. Close enough to see the figures clearly this time. 3 men, all standing on the back deck like they were posing for something. No conversation, no music, no idle gestures, just 3 guys, still as stone, eyes locked on us. There was something in the way they looked at us that didn't feel passive. They weren't just passing through, they were taking us in, measuring something. I remember freezing for half a second. I waited for a wave, a nod, maybe a dumb drunk, happy Memorial Day or something. But nothing, just that cold silence. Not even the engine sputtered. It was too smooth, too quiet. Eli stood there gripping the dock rope, staring at them with this puzzled expression. Said he didn't recognize the boat, or any of them. And Eli? He's lived there his whole life. He knows that canal better than anyone. Every house, every boat name, every old retiree that cruises by twice a day. So why didn't he know them? I kept trying to shrug it off. Told myself maybe they were visiting someone for the weekend. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I knew better. That kind of stare doesn't happen by accident. And the way they just kept going after they passed us, no words, no acknowledgement. It felt less like coincidence and more like a signal of what I still don't know, but I haven't stopped thinking about it since. It was the kind of wake-up that doesn't feel natural, like something pulled me out of sleep by the collar. I remember my throat being painfully dry, like I'd swallowed sand. That was the reason I got up. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But something deeper, something wired into my nerves, had already started buzzing. My body was on edge before my eyes were fully open. I made my way through the house. Lights off, just the soft glow of distant streetlights slipping through the windows. Everyone else was passed out on couches or wherever they'd landed. I didn't even look that hard. I just knew I needed water. Something cold. I stepped into the kitchen, and everything just stopped. There was someone there, standing by the fridge, backlit by the glow of the open door, like something out of a movie, dressed in all black, hood up, face covered, ski mask. And in his hand, a gun, not held lazily, not pointed at anything in particular, just there, ready. For a second, my brain refused to believe it. I actually thought I was still dreaming. Maybe it was the alcohol, maybe I wanted to believe that. But the second he moved, slow, precise, I knew He didn't say anything, didn't bark threats, just made this subtle motion with the gun, telling me to move, and I did. I didn't question it. I didn't look for exits. I didn't scream. I just moved, because right behind him was another one. Same black clothes, same mask, same silent presence, and that's when I stopped thinking. It wasn't fight or flight, it was freeze. The kind of freeze you never practice for, because you hope you'll never need it. But I needed it, and it still wasn't enough. They didn't hesitate. Once they had me, they knew where they were going. Upstairs, they didn't tear the place apart or start yelling demands like you'd expect. It was quiet, chillingly quiet. I led them through that hallway like I was on autopilot, my legs barely working. I don't know how they knew about the safe. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just assumed. Rich neighborhood, big house. It wasn't a wild guess. Eli was dead asleep when we got to his room. I had to wake him, not shake him or call his name, just this slow nudge, like I was hoping he'd somehow wake up calm and clueless. But when he opened his eyes and saw the two masked men standing there, he knew. You could see it hit him all at once. Still drunk, still dazed, but enough awareness to understand we were in real danger. One of them told him to get the code. That was it. No yelling, just pressure, thick and unspoken. Eli made the call to his dad, middle of the night, slurring his words, holding back panic while trying to explain the unexplainable. I don't know how his dad reacted, but he gave the code. They emptied the safe. Bonds, cash, jewelry, documents. Stuff I didn't even know people still kept in safes. They didn't take anything else. Just that. Then they left. No running, no slamming doors, no engine roaring off into the night. Just gone. Like smoke. We did everything we were supposed to after. Police reports, Ring camera footage shared to neighborhood apps. Eli's family talked to the news. Nothing came back. No leads, no names, no arrests. I keep thinking about that boat, the way they watched us, how they followed us in silence. If it wasn't them, then who? And if it was, how long had they been planning it? I've asked myself that 100 times. Still do. Because the thing is, it never really ended. Not for me. It was Memorial Day weekend. One of those rare times where all of us actually managed to sync our schedules and commit to something that didn't involve work, family obligations, or pretending to be interested in brunch. So yeah, when we all crammed into Marcus's SUV and hit the road toward this lakeside cabin in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, it felt like a win. There were 6 of us, me, Drew, Allie, Bree, Marcus, and Noah, and we were packed in with enough coolers, Bluetooth speakers, and bad decisions to last us the whole weekend. The drive was long, but the kind of long that feels like part of the fun. Music up, windows down, half the car asleep while the other half argued over gas station snacks. It felt easy, like the start of a weekend we'd talk about for years, just for all the dumb, hilarious reasons. When we finally pulled off that winding 2-lane highway and onto the gravel road that led to the cabin, I remember thinking the pictures didn't do it justice. It was more secluded than I expected. No neighbors, no passing cars, not even a phone signal. Just a dirt path disappearing into thick trees and a house perched right on the edge of this huge lake. The porch wrapped around like something out of a real estate ad, and the view, it was stupid beautiful. Water stretching out for miles, tree-covered hills on the other side, and just complete silence. The kind that actually felt peaceful. I'd booked it on some last-minute rental site, mostly because the place had a hot tub and a fire pit. At the time, that was all I needed to justify the trip. Looking back, maybe I should have paid more attention to the no reviews part. That first night, we were out by the fire pit, music blasting, drinks in hand. The whole vibe exactly what you'd expect from 6 people trying to shake off real life for a weekend. I remember the way the firelight danced off the surface of the lake, and how loud we were without realizing it. The kind of loud you get when you think no one's around to care. Then the energy just shifted. I didn't notice her at first. It was the way everyone suddenly got quiet that made me turn around. She was just there, standing at the edge of the woods like she'd been watching us for a while. Older, maybe mid-50s, with short hair and this baggy flannel that hung off her like it hadn't been washed in a month. Her face looked like it hadn't smiled in years. Tired, hollow-eyed, not high or drunk though, not that kind of off. More like she carried too many winters in her head. She started yelling, not screaming exactly, but this sharp, cutting voice, something about us disrespecting the land, being loud, not caring about the people who actually lived out here, said we were the reason no one could enjoy the lake anymore. The whole thing felt rehearsed, like she'd said it 100 times, but no one ever listened. One of the girls tried asking if she lived nearby, just trying to de-escalate, I think. But the woman didn't even acknowledge the question. She just stood there for a second, staring. Not at any of us specifically, just through us. Then, just like that, she turned around and walked straight back into the trees. No flashlight, no trail, just vanished into blackness like she'd never been there at all. And the weird part? None of us even saw where she came from in the first place. The next afternoon, after we'd shaken off our hangovers with greasy breakfast sandwiches and drinks, I wandered down to the lake just to clear my head. That's when I saw it, a rowboat, just floating there, half crooked in the shallow edge like it had been nudged in by the wind. Old, metal, dented, not tied down to anything. I stood there for a second, just staring at it. I knew that boat wasn't there the night before. I would have noticed. It was the kind of thing that stands out when you think you're alone out in the middle of nowhere. I called the others over and we dragged it onto the shore. Up close it was worse. Rust had eaten into most of the hull. One of the oar locks was broken, like it had been torn loose. But the part that really got under my skin, there was a boot inside. Just one, faded brown leather, waterlogged, like it had been there a while. It was sitting neatly in the middle of the boat, like someone had left it on purpose. Underneath, the bottom of the boat had deep scratches. Not the kind you get from rocks. More like something had dragged it across gravel again and again, scraping into the metal. Or, I don't know, something else. We tossed the boot aside and cracked a few jokes about horror movies, trying to play it cool, but no one really laughed. It was one of those moments where everyone pretends it's nothing, so they don't have to be the first one to admit it feels off. That night, when I walked back down to the shore, the boat was gone, just gone, like it had never been there at all, and no one brought it up again. Not once. That night felt different. The fire was still going and the drinks were still being poured, but something had shifted in the air. We weren't as loud, not like the first night. Maybe it was that woman, maybe it was the boat, I don't know, but the energy wasn't the same. Hells, the music was barely on, just background noise at that point. I remember staring at the flames, not really talking, just letting the night soak in. Then we heard it, a voice, thin, strained, somewhere out on the lake. At first I thought it was an echo or someone messing with us, but then it came again, clearer this time. Help, just that. One word, dragged across the water. Everyone stopped moving. No laughter, no talking, no nervous jokes, just silence. And then instinct kicked in. Drew and I grabbed one of the kayaks by the side deck and pushed off without really saying anything. I don't even know what the plan was. We didn't bring flashlights or anything smart like that. Just 2 paddles, adrenaline, and the worst kind of curiosity. We called out, asking where they were, trying to follow the voice. It would answer, but each time it sounded further away, like it was pulling us deeper into the dark. The further we paddled, the more disoriented I felt. The shore behind us started to blur into just a thin line of lights. Everything else, black water, black sky, and then the voice just stopped. No splash, no movement, no sound at all. We sat out there, floating in the dark, listening to absolutely nothing. It was like the whole lake had swallowed itself. Like we had imagined the whole thing, but I know we didn't. We were still out on the lake, just drifting, trying to figure out what to do next. Neither of us said it out loud, but I think we were both hoping the voice would come back, just so the silence didn't feel so final, like maybe we hadn't just chased a ghost into the dark. Then we heard it, screaming from the direction of the cabin. Sharp, raw, immediate. It wasn't just one person either. It sounded like both Allie and Bree, maybe even Marcus too. It was high-pitched and panicked, the kind of sound that cuts through your spine before your brain can catch up. It didn't sound like a prank or someone being dramatic. It sounded like someone was in real, absolute danger. I don't remember deciding to paddle. We just did. Fast. The water felt thicker all of a sudden, like we were fighting against it. My hands were shaking, heart pounding so hard it made me feel sick. The shore came into view slower than I wanted it to. The dock, the porch, the fire pit, everything looked exactly the same, but they were gone. All of them. The house was still lit up. The sliding door was wide open, music still faintly playing, but no one was there. Not inside, not outside, not even a single footprint in the gravel that hadn't already been there. Their phones were still on the table, the drinks, half finished, right where we left them. It was like they'd just evaporated. No signs of a break-in, no forced doors, no signs of struggle, just total silence again. That kind of silence that wraps around you like a warning, and I still can't explain how 6 people vanish like that in less than 10 minutes. We didn't have a plan, just panic. The kind that makes your mouth dry and your thoughts spiral. With the others gone and no clue what had just happened, Drew and I jumped into Marcus's SUV and drove. There wasn't much to choose from. Just one house we remembered seeing on the way in, up a steep gravel road about a mile back. It looked lived in. Porch light was on, a dim glow coming from inside. We parked, ran up, knocked hard. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. We started yelling, hoping someone would hear us, hoping someone normal lived there. But it stayed quiet. I went around to the front window just to see if anyone was moving inside. That's when I saw her. She was behind the curtain, half-shadowed but unmistakable. The same woman from the woods. Same clothes, same expression, or lack of one. She wasn't moving, just standing there, perfectly still like a mannequin. Like she was waiting. Her eyes looked straight through the glass. Through me. I couldn't even tell if she was breathing. I don't know how long I stood there staring back before my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Noah. I answered fast. Maybe too fast. He was whispering, breathless, panicked. Said they were hiding in the woods. Said 2 men, tall, masks, axes, had come out of nowhere. Said they barely made it out. He kept saying they didn't know if they were being followed. Then the line cracked, glitched, and just ended. No callback, no signal bars, just that same dead silence. And I turned back to the window and she was still there. Still hadn't moved. She never moved. We found them maybe 30 minutes later, or maybe longer. Time stopped making sense after that phone call. They were crouched low in the brush, just off the roadside, eyes wide, clothes streaked with dirt like they'd been crawling through the woods. They didn't even speak at first, just this exhausted, shaken silence, like words couldn't catch up to whatever had just happened. Noah wouldn't stop scanning the tree line. Allie was crying but not making any sound. Bry wouldn't look any of us in the eye, and Marcus just kept whispering. They were real. They were right there, like he was trying to convince himself he hadn't imagined it. A sheriff's cruiser rolled up not long after. Someone must have called them, maybe one of the neighbors, if there even were any. We told them everything, or at least tried to, about the voice, the woman, the boat, the screams, the men in the woods. It sounded insane even as I said it. The deputy listened, nodded slowly, wrote a few things down, but I could tell he didn't believe a word of it. We went back to the cabin together. It was exactly how we left it. Lights on, door open, phones still on the table, but no sign of anyone. No woman, no boat, no masked men, no footprints, nothing. We packed up and left before the sun came up. None of us talked much. The ride home was quiet. Not the tired kind of quiet, but the kind where no one wants to say out loud what they're still thinking. Airbnb gave us most of our money back, but honestly, who cares? That place took more than it charged, and I still don't know what we walked into out there, just that I won't ever go anywhere. That's silent again, not for a long, long time.